Now, there is another way in which you can find the quotient and the remainder of a division of two numbers, right? And that method uses a function called divmod, okay, division modulo, and it's a function, uh, it's a built-in function provided to you by Python. A function is nothing but a block of code that has a name. So it's some functionality. Think of it as a functionality that has been provided to you by Python. Okay, and the way we call this function, and essentially most functions, right? Any function, you'll have a set of parentheses. In Python, when you call a function, functions are called. Okay, when you call a function, you provide a set of parentheses, and inside the parentheses you provide what's known as arguments. Okay, so these are called arguments. We will talk about functions later on in greater detail, but right now in this module we'll just learn how to use this divmod function to find out the quotient and the remainder. Okay, and as you can see, the program is pretty simple. Again, just like before, we take two numbers, two integers from the user, right? So we ask the user to enter the first number and the second number, and then store these two numbers into variables number 1 and number 2, right? So the user may choose to enter 100 in the first line and then 3 in the second line, right? Now the way divmod works is, when you call the number, right, when you call this function, when you call this function, divmod, you pass the number and then you pass the second number with which you want to divide the first number. So this means the first number divides, the second number divides the first number. Okay, and the way you get the result is in this format. Okay, you have a quotient q comma r equals divmod, right? So if the user enters 10 and 3, when this line is executed, after this line is executed, q will have the value, the quotient, which is 33, and r will have the remainder, which is 1, right? So you could say q r equals divmod 5 2, and when you run the statement, or after you run the statement, q would be equal to, q would have the value 2 and r would have the value 1, right? So that's just another way of doing the same thing which we did before. Okay, if you are comfortable with using this or these two operators, feel free to do so, right? Or if you're more comfortable using divmod, okay, doesn't matter, right? As long as the answer is correct, how you reach this solution doesn't matter, right? Because in this case, both divmod and the division and modulo independently, they do the same thing. Okay, so again, before we move on, let's just run a few divmod commands and see that it works as expected, right? So let's say quotient, remainder, we want to find the division modulo between two numbers, right? So for example, 1 2 3 4 and 100, right? So divmod 1 2 3 4 and 100, and note that you do not say divided by, right? All you do is you provide a comma between the two numbers, right? So you would not say 1 2 3 4 divided by 10. Okay, you would not say that. You should separate the numbers by a comma. Okay, that's how functions are called in Python. So when you run this and you print q, it gives you 12 because that's the quotient, and you print r, it gives you the remainder, which is 34, right? Similarly, if you want to verify, let's say divmod 100 by, I don't know, 12 or something, right? It gives you 8 4, and this means the q is, the quotient is 8 and the remainder is 4. Okay, if you want to verify this, 112, right? That's your quotient, and 100 modulo 12, that's your remainder, right? So it's the same thing. You get the same result using divmod or by using these two individual operators. Okay.